Okay, let's put our little friend over here. So, finally, real combat. Player only has the axe. So we see that we have to close the distance. We've got to run over. And we've got to get to the high ground. The dog's coming out. We've got a choice of different ways of getting up to the high ground. Now, I really like this encounter. I think there's a lot of different ways the player can approach it, but they have to run back down here while under fire. They can come up here, they can come up here, they can take cover inside the goodest boy, which is actually a really good idea, by the way, taking cover in here. Just let them wander up here. But the thing I don't want them to do, I'm just going to make a save real quick. Let's use this one. And reload. I'm going to demonstrate why it's so important the player didn't get the Cry Lance earlier. So if we have the Cry Lance, then we just do this. And the player doesn't have to take any sort of risk, and it's totally boring. It totally ruins the encounter. Now, I'm not saying that having a gun here, you couldn't design an encounter that would be interesting if you had a gun here. In fact, if you play the map on brutalizing difficulty, then that's exactly what you get. You will have a gun when you come up here, and there'll be warlocks and stuff. I'm not sure how many people have actually played on that difficulty, but it's a completely different experience. Yeah, let's go back to the main... this one. So we can continue. So loads of places have opened up now. We've got this opened up, although the player would have no way of knowing that it had. We've got the museum that's opened up. And we've got this room. Let's talk about this one first. I actually, I'm not happy at all with this entrance door. I think anyone who knows anything about architecture will realise you just don't have a door with like the public walkway of the road and then the room on right on this side. There should at least be some sort of porch or transitional space, like a corridor or a porch or something. I'm not really happy with that, but I am happy with the inside of the room. I think this is one of my favourite rooms here. Bonus points in the comments if anybody can name what this chest opening is. You'll get a gold star. Yes, I mean everybody talked about this. Look at the little dice, little sector dice. Each player's got a different coloured dice. This one's put them in a line because they've got, you know, they're bored at the table. Dungeon Master screen. And I was planning on having every single one of these characters have some sort of reference out in the world. I think there's only 3 of them that I ended up doing. I just didn't get round to doing the others. Your Lady DeWoe, that's played by the person who lives in the villa down that end over there. And Fungo is yeah, Fungo was the person down there in the chair. And Gartoff, this is the one who was in the mine area earlier that we didn't actually read. Alright, let's have a look in the museum. Any joke that I could think of, I put in here. There was no quality control at all. We've got to collect this Claw of Beavis. This is our main weapon. Gives us plenty of ammo. I had this Major Tour joke here. We've got the Minor Tour Ruby and the Major Tour Ruby. Now, one player who saw this absolutely laughed his arse off. And to me, it doesn't matter if everybody else thought it was cringe. As long as that one player laughed his arse off, it was worth it, in my opinion. Yep, we got jokes about tortured humans. The idea here is that the demons just don't understand, you know, how human society works, I suppose. Brain crown for later, that's very important, obviously. Some orky things. You know what? The fragfire cans, I asked Zan about this, and I'm not sure. So the orcs obviously use the fragfire cans in their guns, but the Cerberus dogs also have the fragfire cans inside their necks, as far as I'm aware, and they use them to breathe fire. There's a note somewhere, I'll find it and put it up on the screen if I can, which talks about the cultists making sure the Cerberuses are fully loaded before a ceremony. And so I was wondering whether it's the cultists that invented the fragfire can, or whether it's the orcs and goblins, the Iron Division. Because presumably, either the Iron Division are adapting a cult device for their guns to use in their guns, or vice versa? I'm not sure. But it made it very difficult when I was writing this note here, trying to explain what this is. I wasn't sure whether it should be, you know, a cult item or a Iron Division item, really. And we find Sprott alive. I finally had the idea that she could be alive and they could have put her in the museum. Long after I had the museum, there were, you know, the museum was here, it was built, and then I thought, well, if Sprott is alive, where can I put her? And I decided it would be quite funny if they put her in the museum. I think the reason she keeps turning around and looking away from me is because the dogs are on the other side of this wall, but I'm not sure. She's got our little bowls. She gives you a clue, by the way, that the key is in the back of the pet shop, and I think a lot of players missed that, because I saw a lot of players asking on forums, like, where's the copper key? I don't know where the copper key is. Yeah, see, they keep the key in the back of the pet shop, I think. Okay. I'm really happy that players actually felt compelled to rescue Sprott. Actually, the vast majority of the people who played this map returned Sprott to the Gaudy Goblin Tavern, and I'm really happy about that because there's no incentive to do it. There's no gameplay incentive. You don't need to do it, and the only reason anybody would have done that is if they actually wanted to do it. You know, they felt compelled, and I feel like that is a great success. Okay, we got the claw. I talked about some of the items in here. It's probably enough. I guess it's time to head into here. Let's do this encounter and then I'll talk about it. Ah, don't stab me. I'm really messing these bombs up. We got them all? Okay. So this room, I was originally planning on this room being more similar to the downstairs in the Gaudy Goblin. This central thingy was supposed to be the equivalent of the central fireplace in the Gaudy Goblin. But, I mean, after that it basically completely deviated. But this is, you know, it's supposed to be the mirror image of that. Sorry, milady. Took me a long time to get around to doing the art class for this room. In fact, in a much earlier version of this, the upstairs area extended over here, and there was a balcony here where if you're on the upstairs you could look this way. And the reason that was so the chain gunners, if you ran through here, the chain gunners could pursue you and shoot down at you from up there. But instead of that, I found it really hard to make it look good. It just looked like such a mess when you're up there, like the shape of the space just didn't work, and like the way these doors went up meant that this bit had to be really thick in order to have space for the doors to go up into it, and it just didn't work. So I had this big fat guy, he comes and is your he's the guy who prevents you from just rushing through, you know? And the menu, the baked potato. I do enjoy doing things like this. It's the baked potato that, for me, is the most fun. You know, we got all these ridiculous hell foods, but here it is, the humble baked potato. I could do with some health, actually. I'll eat all of their stuff. Originally the toilets were over here. This was the entrance. But I'm happy to have changed it to be down there. I just think it makes the room more... I just prefer the way the space is. Rather than it being this one really long bit that you just run down the middle, it's just a bit more interesting if you have to turn. I'm going to the gents? Or is it the gents? I suppose it's a unisex toilet, isn't it, really? You know what? Why didn't I make two toilets? One could have gone this way, one could have gone this way. Huh. I could even have had the two toilets joined up via the vents at the back. That would have been a good idea. Maybe I'll do that in the update. I like the idea that the gold key, which is obviously the most prestigious key, being gold, has just been dropped behind these leaky pipes in the toilets. I feel like that, I don't know, creates a cool juxtaposition. Let's see if we can get up here without standing in the poo. There we go. I think it's a legal obligation when you've got bathroom stalls to make a secret inside one of them. That's mandatory. It's a bit like having to put a secret behind a waterfall, right? If you got a waterfall, the level design police come and get you if you don't do that. Alright, we got the gold key. Which means we can get out here, because this has been locked with the gold thingy. And we spawned a couple of these bad boys. There it goes. Okay, so we got the gold key, we can go into these areas now. By the way, you can actually see the key item all the way from down here, the power cord. Obviously nobody would have ever noticed that, but I did try and put it in sight. Oh, I should talk about the inside of here first, actually. Hold on. I'll probably talk about this and end the episode. So, the dogs. I picked up a piece of meat already. Look at this, it says, "This Cerberus is excited to see you. This Cerberus," and this one will say, "This Cerberus looks hungry." But if I read its name tag, Rocky is a bundle of energy, blah blah blah. Now it will say, "Rocky looks excited to see you." This one still says, "This Cerberus," if I read his name tag, Asmodee. Asmodee looks hungry. See that? It's called programming. Maybe you should try it sometime. Spike, unfortunately, came running out earlier and was mercilessly cut down by Zan the Bonebreaker. Now, I'm not sure how many players realised that, but, you know, you're a monster. You killed Spike. Poor Spike was a loving Cerberus who sometimes takes his protective instincts a little bit too seriously. Oh dear. Oh dear. these descriptions were more or less taken from, you know, rescue home places. I went and looked up. Obviously, I changed the names of the original dogs to protect their identities. Diablo's in here. A lot of people weren't sure why the meat eating for the dogs was a mechanic, and it changed quite a bit over the course of development. I don't know how many people know this, but in map 9 of Hedon, the one where you are in the lab and there's a dog that you feed with the meat like this, that dog that you feed becomes friendly to you and it will fight for you after all the monsters get released. I don't know how many people notice, but I thought that was a really cool idea, and I wanted to do something more with it. I wanted to make something a bit more systemic, where you could have either fed the dogs or not, and based on that they would fight for you or not. And originally there was going to be an encounter, or sort of a final encounter, after you got the crown and were ready to go and finish the map. As you came along here, all the dogs automatically got released, whether or not you had fed them, and I was going to have these doors here open up and a bunch of cultists come out, and there would have been, you know, one last encounter out here, and depending on whether or not you fed the dogs would either be on your side or not. And it was implemented, but the problem was, if you'd fed, let's say, 2 of the dogs, then they just started killing each other, and the player had absolutely no idea what was going on. You wouldn't know which ones were on your side and which ones were on their side. It was total chaos, and it was just impossible to really make sense of for the player. So I never got around to really making the encounter in full, because I never opened up these. But even just with the dogs, it just didn't work. So instead, this was around the time when I decided Sprott was going to be alive and rescuable, and I thought, well, I want that to be like a super duper secret that you can only get if you've maybe fed all the dogs. And so that's how it worked. You would feed all the dogs, and once you'd fed the final dog, the man would come out of this door at the back and attack you, because, you know, you'd fed all his dogs or whatever, and then you'd kill him, and you'd get the key, and you could go rescue Sprott. And that's how it was when I first released the map to playtesters. And this didn't exist, by the way, this crack in the wall. But my playtester convinced me that it was too difficult, that most players would want to rescue Sprott. They'd feel invested in her well-being and would want to rescue her, and it being hidden behind a really convoluted big super secret wasn't the right choice, and he convinced me, and I think it's the right decision. So the Sprott secret became much easier. I put the cracked wall here. We already have a pickaxe from earlier. Amber's pickaxe, in fact. We can't get through there just yet because of the brain field. And it was also good because it meant that I could give this broken cell a reason. Because before then, there was absolutely no reason to ever go in here. Now, it has a reason. But the feeding of the dogs is left feeling a little bit unimportant. It doesn't really matter. You just have the option to release them after you've fed them, and they can run around and they can't really help you because there's no more encounters left. Maybe I should make it so that after you release them now, then I open up these doors so that the dogs have at least got somebody to fight against. That could be good, I suppose, just to give it a reason to exist. Alright then. I guess that'll be the end of the episode for now. After this I'll go in here. Actually, one more thing real quick. I'll just call this guy. I will say, there's a broken window here. You can look through it and you can see the copper key. I don't think a single player noticed this. Not a single one. You can also see... Oh my god, there's a dog here, watch out, be careful about that. You can also see through here to the broken wall there, which gives the player a hint that there could be a crack on the other side. Again, nobody saw that. Alright, GG, see you in the next one.